Sheet metal safety. In this presentation, we're going to have a general overview of some general safety tips and guidelines that we should be dealing with and making sure that we follow to the best of our ability to try to stay safe when we are working around sheet metal and obviously in a couple of construction site scenarios. So basically, job safety is based on knowledge, it's based on skill, and it's based on an attitude of care and concern. When we are on construction sites, we always have to be aware of our surroundings. We have to be constantly monitoring what other people are doing on the job site. We have to be vigilant of, holes, ditches, open areas maybe that may not be properly secured or may cause a fall, ladder safety, all of those areas to make sure that we are safe. Obviously, we need to make sure that we are wearing the proper protective equipment, hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, work boots, long pants. Obviously shorts and stuff like that is really not a very good thing to be wearing on a construction site because obviously you can get cut. So, but safety, as far as sheet metal workers are concerned, they must be familiar with those potential hazards of their craft and understand how to reduce or eliminate these types of issues. Sheet metal is very sharp. It has sharp edges, and if we are not careful, it can seriously cut you. Okay? In order to reduce those chances, we should be wearing gloves when we are handling sheet metal. It was in 1971 where Congress created the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, better known as OSHA. It is OSHA, it is their responsibility for setting and enforcing work safety guidelines. So in general, employers are required to provide a place of employment free of known hazards likely to cause death or injury. Okay, all employers, they must comply with safety and health standards enacted by OSHA, and it is the employees are required to comply with those standards. When we get hired on a job, we have to follow those guidelines. If we don't, and OSHA happens to show up on the job site, that job site can get shut down. That company can get seriously fined. It can get kicked off of the job, and obviously that's not good for anybody. Okay, we want the job to be completed, but we want it to be done in a safe manner. When we are on a job site, we need to be vigilant on how we are dressed. Okay, proper protective equipment, PPE, is our clothing, our hats, face shields if we need it, shoes, boots, and other items that protect a person's body from injury. Okay, all of the PPE that is on a job site must meet OSHA standards. Your safety boots or work boots are worn to protect your feet. Okay, they generally have steel toes. In fact, many companies may actually even require you to have steel toe boots. You cannot be walking around in sneakers. That's a liability. That's a dangerous OSHA violation. Reinforced on steel soles. They may also be slip-resistant soles. It depends on the company. It depends on what we're doing. Steel toes obviously protect your toes from falling and rolling objects. Reinforced or steel soles prevent penetration of sharp objects such as maybe nails and other sharp objects getting into your feet. Slip-resistant soles protect the workers from wet, slippery, and other hazardous surfaces. And we should never, ever be wearing canvas or sneakers on a job site. That is just an accident waiting to happen. Your gloves, those are worn by sheet metal workers for several reasons. Okay, they protect against metal splinters and rough edges. They protruding screws and rivets, extreme temperatures of the metal. Okay, work gloves are commonly made of either canvas, leather, or rubber. Now, when you get out into the field, depending on those days, especially if you get into the sheet metal side of stuff, you're going to be working in construction sites that have no heat. There's no insulation. It's just basically nothing more than a skeleton of a building. If it's extremely cold, that metal is going to get extremely cold. Okay? So we are going to run into issues where we can run into even frostbite if we're dealing with sheet metal. So gloves is going to protect our fingers from extreme conditions like that. Even in the dead of summer where it's really, really hot out, that metal is going to be sitting. That metal can get really hot. It can actually cause a little bit of a burn if we touch it long enough. So the gloves are very important to wear when you are dealing with sheet metal. Safety glasses, obviously, that's going to be protecting our eyes. Okay, these include your traditional spectacles, goggles, and face masks. So in order for safety glasses to meet OSHA standards, glasses must not shatter or otherwise break during testing. These safety glasses are classified either by basic impact glasses or high impact glasses. Safety glasses should always be worn whenever eyes are exposed to a hazard. Much of the work done by sheet metal workers exposes the eyes to those dangers. Okay, metal shavings, if we're cutting that metal and a splinter happens to fly off while we're cutting that metal, it can get into your eye. So safety glasses should be worn in the trade. Not only if you're dealing with sheet metal, it should be worn if you're doing soldering, it should be brazing. Anything that is above you or you have a potential of getting something in your eye, those safety glasses should be on your face. Hard hats are designed to protect the head from falling objects. Some of all for protection from also electrical hazards. Your hard hats are worn whenever you have the danger of falling objects or if an electrical conductor is exposed that might come in contact with your head. Again, look at a job site. You know, you got 100 different people going in 15 different directions, drilling holes, running wires, pipes, ductwork, and all that stuff. There's going to be stuff that's going to be lying around. So the hard hat is always on your head to protect you from that potential of something happen to fall on you, or hell, even if you have something electrical, which hopefully will never ever happen because there should not be power applied to some stuff when you are on a job site. But hey, you never know. You're going to have to wear a hard hat. Okay, sheet metal workers are going to stand on scaffolding and ladders to handle ductwork and hang it. So it can also become a hazard to people working below them. So therefore a hard hat is also required. God forbid if you're hanging a piece of ductwork with your partner and one of you happens to lose your balance or happens to drop the ductwork and you got somebody working below you. You never know, that ductwork might hit them in the head. Hopefully they're wearing their hard hat. As far as ladders, we have three types of ladders that we really deal with in the trade. Your step ladders, your straight ladders, and extension ladders. Okay, ladders are also made out of either wood, metal, or fiberglass. So because metal and water conduct electricity, we should never use metal or a metal reinforced ladder where direct contact with an electrical power source is possible. Okay, so here you are. You have your straight ladder right here. This is your step ladder, which is, you know, many people have in their homes. You're going to have them on your trucks and stuff. And then obviously your extension ladder. Okay. Ladders have to be UL approved before use on a job site. Okay, UL stands for Underwriters Laboratories, and that is an independent, not-for-profit product safety certification organization. Basically, all they do is they have a product that's going to be put out for maybe the construction industry. They take that product, they test it, they put it through a series of tests, and they deem it whether or not it is safe to use or not. However, even though it may be UL certified and says it passed the inspection, we should also still take our part and do some inspection work on the ladders before we use it. Okay, we should always make sure that the ladder is in good working condition. It's not broken. Okay, it doesn't have a cut on it or looks like it's falling apart. Okay, don't position the ladder where it can come in contact with electrical lines. I mean, that's a little bit common sense. We do not want to get electrocuted. We want to go home at the end of the day. Don't place a ladder in a doorway. Okay, if this is unavoidable, lock the door or have someone stand at the base of the ladder till your job is finished. Obviously, that's not always going to be a feasible thing to do. So you're going to have to, in some cases, maybe rope off the area or just put out a shout out to the people in the area, hey, I'm working here, don't come around here. Okay, you just got to be vigilant. Communication is very key when you're on a construction site working with ladders, working with sheet metal. Extension ladders must overlap at least 3 feet above or between your sections. Okay, OSHA requires that you have your extension ladder has to extend a minimum of 2 feet above the roof line, and it has to be securely tied off so that it doesn't fall. If OSHA was to fall and come onto a job site and see that an extension ladder is not properly extended and not properly tied off, that's a fine. That person can get into serious trouble. When you're dealing with your standard step ladder, you should always face the ladder. In fact, that goes with any ladder that you're dealing with. You always want to climb it facing the ladder. Don't stand higher than the safe standing level noted on your ladder. On most of your standard, on your ladders, it will tell you, there's going to be a little sticker right here on this last rung of the ladder that will tell you, do not step any higher than that. If you do, then it's now a risk of you falling. You should never ever be climbing or standing on the very, very top of the ladder. Granted, when you are out into the job site, you will see people do this. Is it safe to do? Is it against the manufacturer's recommendations? Is it against OSHA? Absolutely. Okay? Don't be one of those people. The other side, or the rear side of this step ladder, this side is not meant for climbing. Okay? I've seen people do it. I'm sure other people have seen it, but those are not meant for climbing. All those rungs are for is just for stability for the legs on that side of the ladder. It's not for anything else. When you are inspecting a ladder, you should also make sure that the feet or the shoes on the ladder are still intact and not missing. Okay, those are anti-slip safety shoes so that the ladder doesn't start to walk on you or start to slip while you're on it. If you're dealing with an extension ladder, you will notice at the bottom of the extension ladder, it also has feet. It'll have a threaded surface and it'll also have a spiked surface. The threaded surface is for areas such as pavement, concrete. The spiked portion of them is for grassy areas, dirt areas. That way it doesn't slip. The feet will actually dig into the ground and properly secure it so that it doesn't move on you. When it comes to lifting an extension ladder, you're going to do what this gentleman is doing in this picture. You're going to lie that extension ladder flat down on the ground and you are going to walk the extension ladder up. Obviously, when you are doing this, you are going to need to be paying attention overhead to make sure that you're not going to come in contact with anything above you. Obviously, that's going to kind of defeat the purpose if you're if you're doing it this way. If the ladder is extremely heavy, you're going to ask for help from another person to help you lift the ladder. One best way to kind of tell how many people you actually technically need to lift an extension ladder, a 24-foot ladder technically needs 2 people to raise and lower it. A 30-foot ladder will technically need 3 people, and a 40-foot extension ladder will technically need 4 people to raise and lower it. You will also run into scaffolding, especially if you're dealing with high-rise buildings and stuff that has high vaulted ceilings. You may run into scaffolding to hang ductwork. So when dealing with commercial and industrial construction, ladders may not simply be enough to complete that job. So it is sometimes necessary to construct temporary platforms known as scaffolding to help reach those elevated areas. As you can see in this picture, this is obviously an outside portion of a church or something where they're maybe refacing it, but you will also run into scaffolding on the interior of that building if it is needed. Okay, materials used to build scaffolding include metal for the frame and wood or metal for the platforms. Using scaffolds near power lines must be carefully monitored. Scaffolding must be properly anchored to the ground and to the building or walls or whatever it is that it's going to be used for so that it doesn't topple over. Because scaffolding is elevated and people may be standing on it, scaffolding has to be properly secured and supported and obviously constructed properly. You will also run into scissor lifts when you're dealing with sheet metal. You're going to be hanging ductwork, in some cases 40, 50 feet in the air. You're not going to be doing that off of an extension ladder. You're going to be using what we call a scissor lift. Scissor lifts are often used in place of scaffolding, especially if you can't fit it. Okay, sheet metal workers are often going to use them indoors. Your basic scaffolding safety rules also apply when you are dealing with a scissor lift. When you are on a scissor lift, you should never ever move the scissor lift with the bucket totally extended all the way up. If you have to move it in any sort of way, back, forth, left, right, whatever, the bucket is to come all the way down to the very bottom, to the base of the scissor lift, and then you can properly move it and maneuver it to where you need to go. Doing it when it is in the upright position or totally extended position is very, very dangerous. Anybody that has been on a scaffold or a scissor lift will know that when you are up there, they do sway. And the higher you go, the more they sway. So by moving it with it fully extended just enhances and raises a potential of that scissor lift possibly toppling over and seriously injuring the person on it. I have seen this personally on a job site with a gentleman who was using a scissor lift fully extended, and he did exactly that. He moved it forward a little bit, but little did he know that the floor on the construction site had a little bit of a dip, and he moved it a little bit too far. The tire of the scissor lift hit that little dip, and it toppled over. The man fell approximately about 40 feet, and he broke both of his legs. Obviously, the scissor lift was also damaged, created a major issue on the job site. Obviously, an investigation and all that stuff had to happen. But needless to say, the man did get seriously injured. When working on scaffolding, you got to follow some of these basic guidelines. You have to follow all local, state, and federal codes regarding scaffolding. Install guardrails, tow rails, screens on the platform. Maintain the required distance from any power lines. Don't place makeshift ladders or other devices on scaffolding. to increase its height. Use planking that is heavy enough to handle the load to be placed on it. You will also run into welding in some cases. When we are welding, this is used in sheet metal work to fasten sheet metal pieces together, and can also be very, very dangerous. The light from the arc is harmful to our eyes. The light from the arc can cause sunburn on exposed skin. Melting metal can create toxic fumes, and the higher the temperature and sparks also can create a fire. So if you are ever dealing with welding, you are needing to put on a face shield or special safety glasses, obviously, to make sure that you are not exposing your face and your eyes to this very, very high intensity arc. When welding, follow some of these guidelines. Cover all of your skin, including your neck and forearms. We do not want the sparks from the arc to get onto your skin. It's going to burn you. Never look at the arc in your naked eye. It can literally blind you. Wear a helmet or proper shade to protect the eyes from the light and the sparks. Don't weld metals containing cadmium, zinc, beryllium, or lead, as they can create toxic fumes. If absolutely necessary to weld these metals, you are going to put on a respirator or do it in a very well ventilated area. You should also keep a fire extinguisher handy if you are going to be welding next to a flammable product such as wood, sheetrock, anything of that nature. Soldering is used to join pieces of metal together or to prevent leakage in a container. Even though welding is more popular and more widely used, soldering continues to be a useful process in some of the applications when it comes to sheet metal. The tip of the soldering iron or copper can reach up to about 500 degrees. So obviously, you touch that, you're seriously going to get burned. Always handle the soldering iron carefully. Do not swing it around. Don't do anything stupid with it, basically. Don't handle the soldering material until it is completely cooled. When we are working with chemicals, solvents, pastes, glues, stuff of that nature, fluxes, all that stuff, those are all a variety of chemicals that's going to be used on sheet metal work to clean the surface, remove rust, and to dissolve other substances. Solvents can be corrosive and can damage the skin if it comes in contact. Flux, which is used on soldering, can create harmful gases. That must be, if you're going to use it, you have to put it in a ventilated area. When dealing with chemicals, always keep in mind that they may be dangerous. You should always store the chemicals properly and in proper containers. Keep them in a safe area and locked if necessary. Wear your face and eye protection from splashing of the substances, and know the location of the nearest eye washing station if there obviously is one. Hopefully there is one nearby, and if the job site is properly set up, they will have one.